Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Willow, 1973 krautrock, breezy, detailed, and free-flowing. They incorporated avant-garde jazz, psychedelic funk, and musique concrète into the weird strain of rock and influenced ambient, post-punk, and much more. What we're talking about here is Can, which I find kind of comical that this is the second band this week that we also checked out last week, following up on Shushu. Last time we checked out, what was that song? It was popular too. It's like I can remember it. Anyways, today we're checking out Future Days, which is a bit longer, whereas the last track was only 3 minutes long. This one is 9.5. Now, what's really interesting is that last track that we checked out was actually a short snippet of a much larger demo. That song being Vitamin C. There we go, I got it cleared up now. There's actually a much larger demo that had a psychedelic, jazzy 7-minute opening to that song that then ends on a version of the Vitamin C that we listened to last week. Being that this is 9.5 minutes long, and given the context from Willow about this, I'm going to assume that this is more of that adventurous, jazzy, jam band kind of stuff that might lead into a shorter song, or maybe it incorporates vocals into their more jammy sessions better. Or maybe it's something totally different. I've only ever heard one Can song, apparently, so can't really do too much guessing based off of that. Anyways, this is too long of an introduction at 2 minutes long. Geez, let's get into this, see what Can is bringing to the table today. I don't like the fish flopping in water sound. It's very atmospheric. Haven't really done much musically, but they've done a fantastic job creating atmosphere and using sounds to set a tone and a vibe. We're quickly coming up on a third of the song being over, and we're still just setting the scene. Bass kick off on the left is interesting. I like the bass guitar tone. Very chill, very relaxed. We have been hearing this general beat for a while now, though. I do like the percussion. We got cross stick, very light bass work, some shakers, some finger drumming. Nice little guitar solo in that last section, very distant though. Nothing's really trying to take prominence at all on this. Really interesting juxtaposition between the vocal rhythm and the guitar rhythm. Thing over here. This song feels quiet all the time though, it's wild. I wonder if it's because only the percussion, you watch the volume meters over on the left, it's really only the percussion that pushes it to the top. Everything else is quite a bit softer. This feedback sounds is overpowering the solo. Huh. Is this going to transition into the next song? No? No, they just wanted two fade outs. I'm going to try my best on this. I don't feel like I have a good read on this at all. Things might develop as I start talking about it. I'll be completely honest though. Coming off this track, it feels like a novel that never really goes anywhere. And then we hit the third act, and there's some tension. There's conflict that doesn't really seem like it belongs there, but you can't really have a story without conflict. So the writer seems to just throwing it in there at the end, and then it resolves, and then the camera zooms out. It says, "Did you enjoy the movie, folks?" I don't really get it. I mean, unless that's also supposed to be the thing. The song, for sure, is definitely concerned with the here and now, which is wild given that it's called Future Days. The song doesn't really care about anything that happens outside of this moment right now, and we spend 9.5 minutes exploring a single vibe. And that's why I think it feels kind of weird when, like, 7.5 minutes into this song, 8 minutes into this song, we have the swell up of that weird back and forth organ thing that kind of dominates everything else. It creates tension in a song that really hasn't played around with that at all. And then pretty much as soon as it comes in, it fades itself out, and then the song fades out. That whole moment feels really weird to me. Maybe it all makes sense in the context of the lyrics. Maybe it's about trying to push the future off as long as you can. You don't want to worry about future days, possibly, would be how that term is used. And so you just chill out now. But eventually the future will become now, and you'll have to deal with the repercussions of procrastination. That's the only interpretation I think I have that would mix the title with what the musical story told me. Because I mean, the song just is not worried about what happens next. This is our A section. We're going to stick with it. We love it. We're going to do an A section for 9 minutes. And you really have to enjoy this vibe, which I don't think it's a bad vibe at all. It's nice, chill, laid back, relaxed. I mentioned the drumming. I love the percussion on this. We have the shakers, which are very shakers just give a laid back feel. It's just a very light but constant energy. It's a really great percussion instrument. We have the finger drums, these really quick runs in a couple of places just to provide a little bit of extra timbre in the percussion area. From the drum kit itself, we just have some hi-hat and some cross stick, a little bit of bass kick, very light drumming, doesn't take up a lot of room at all, and it's very chill, laid back. There's not a lot of energy or intensity to it. The guitar sits way off on the left side distance. I can barely hear it most of the time. I had to turn this song up quite a bit higher than I'm usually comfortable with because it's such a quiet song all the time. But even the 3 times we had guitar solos, you really have to listen hard because that guitar is playing so quietly. It's very cool though. I like this idea of the solo instrument not stealing the spotlight. The core vibe of the song is still the main draw here. The guitar solo would only take away from that, but we can't have nothing happening between some of these vocal bits, so we'll give the melody to the guitar, but we're not going to change up the production at all. They're going to be way off center. They're going to be quiet. They're going to be distant. Be a nice little chill melody if you want to tune into it, but if not, the vibe is still here. I respect that. That is a very cool decision, even if I find it a bit obtuse. I did want to hear what the guitarist was playing, and I found it rather difficult to do so. But it was in service to the song, I think. There is a bass guitar and an organ. The organ sometimes plays drone, sometimes has weird effects to it. Um, there's that shifting one where it was like a very wide, slow vibrato. Wow, 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 wow. Just like holding that out for a long time. Um, in fact, we kind of did that at the end too with the swell up, didn't we? The organ just kind of stuck out most of the time, played foundation a lot, and then did weird bonkers ideas that I can't make heads or tails of. And then we have a nice chill melody from the vocals. That was good, I think. Just like the guitar is really hard to hear the vocal melody, very quiet, especially against the percussion. As I pointed to the volume visualizer over there, I'd say that most of the band was at 75%, but the accents from the percussion were at 100%, and they always overshadowed everything. I would have liked for the accented hits from the percussion to be brought in line with the band a little bit, and that way the band could have been boosted up and we could have heard some of the vocal stuff, but maybe that would have been a totally different vibe that they didn't want to go with. Now, that is like most of the song. There are some variations, some different guitar melodies, the vocal shifts a little bit. I think there is a verse and a chorus, but I'm not entirely sure on that. But for the most part, like I said, you really have to enjoy this vibe because you're going to hear a lot of it. But that isn't all of the song. There's also the intro. It took us a good 2 minutes before we even heard music. The opening 2 minutes are sounds, field recordings, all sorts of stuff. Nothing musical, but sound. I'm not sure what it was all supposed to be representing. It starts off with water being whipped around, like a fish at the top of water, kind of splashing around with their tail. I didn't really like that sound. There was some, I don't know, insects humming like a drone. There was a conversation that took place between somebody who was kind of muffled a little bit and then someone else who was completely distorted. I couldn't hear what the second vocal set was saying at all. And they were having some sort of conversation. And then not long after this is where the vibe started. I wouldn't even say the song picked up here proper. We just began to incorporate elements of the drum rhythm that we would hear throughout and the bass. Eventually the guitar jumps in as well. And we listen to this for like a minute and a half or 2 minutes before we enter the first verse and get our first bit of true melody. It's been purely atmospheric for 4 minutes of this song. It's an incredibly patient track, and it requires a patient audience to groove with it. I think that once the song picks up around the 4 minute mark, it's generally fine. I didn't have a problem with it. It's very groovy. I like the atmosphere it has, but it is a lot of the same. And sometimes I might be in the mood for that. Usually I'm not. And so I found myself getting a bit bored with this. My attention kind of drifting in and out at times, trying to focus on it, and it just not wanting to be focused on at all. And all of this sameness, this atmosphere with spurts of melody within it, takes us to the end. And I'm very confused about this ending too. Because as I mentioned, the organ comes in with their vibraty, swelling thing. Tension rises, the guitar's doing this cool little solo, and then you can't hear it because his sound is just dominating everything. And then it just fades away, as does the whole song, until we hit almost silence, and then the general groove and vibe comes back in to fade itself out in like a 20-second span of fading in, fading out. The double fade out is kind of wild. Restarting the song after the the noise element took over for a second just to fade the song right back out. I don't get any of it. I really don't. Um, it's interesting, I think. But I think more interesting to me is that it's certainly of its time. This feels very early rock, psychedelic, experimental. And it made me curious about some stuff. Some things I was thinking about in some of these mind drifts. This was 50 years ago, and it dates itself by its composition, its production as well. But I think primarily its composition, what it does that would have been progressive or experimental at the time that we don't really experiment with anymore. It reminds me of bands like The Doors, who came out in a generally similar time, and also had a jammier styles of psychedelic progressive rock. Another band that has kind of confused me because of the ways that they buck convention and kind of do their own thing. But it made me wonder, 50 more years. We get to the year, 2050s, 2060s, 2070s, and people of that day, not even kids. I mean, I'm almost 40 here, so just people discover the progressive metal of the 90s and 2000s. Your Dream Theaters, your Tesseracts. What is it about the writing of today that's going to make it immediately feel dated? What are they going to be experimenting with 50 years from now that we don't experiment with at all today? That just immediately makes that music feel more modern than Dream Theater or Tesseract. I don't know. I'm not from the future. 50 years is a long freaking time, man. I have no idea what music's going to look like, especially as it continues to ramp up. It might not take 50 years to create such a divide. It might just take 10 now or 20. The music develops at such a rapid rate these days. It's difficult to keep up with trends anymore. It's not so much of this was the music of the decade as this is the music of the year. Seems like every year trends change, which is just, I'm sure that existed in older decades too, but I think it's easier to say, oh, that's an 80s song. It feels very 80s. Whereas, you say 2010s and I mean, 2012 music's very different from 2018 music. They're not really a cohesive decade anymore. Anyways, I was just thinking about that. It has nothing to do with Can. Not directly, anyways. There's weird things my brain thinks about, though. Let me find some lyrics for future days and see if maybe that doesn't put some of the music into a little bit better perspective. These are English words, but it's really tough to make sense of any of it. The spoken part at the beginning, I don't know if this is both sides or just the one that wasn't garbled up. It says, all you're going to do, for all that you do is all you're gonna do, all. And when I'm coming home tonight, do you think you can do the people away to do it all? I'm coming home and away you go to the all and all you go. Those are sentences. English words, sure. I actually went and checked two other websites to make sure Genius wasn't glitching. and I don't know, maybe some weird thing that screws up the order of text. I have no idea. I had to go look elsewhere to double check because this is just bonkers. The chorus was even wilder. I just think that room's to end. How commend them from your dreams? You better have nothing for me. You better move year on your face. You hide behind a borrowed chase for the sake of future dreams. Or, sorry, future days. None of this makes sense to me. There is one line: save that money for a rainy day for the sake of future days. That makes sense to me. And kind of the idea of hiding behind a borrowed chase, I think I could extrapolate into the idea of cowering behind a goal, motivation, of not doing something that you know you need to do because you're chasing this other thing. But it still feels like a little bit of grasping at straws there. Even wilder, we see the verse 3 times, and then the outro is a repetition of the phrase for the sake of future days 16 times. Beyond this, though, verse 2 is just the chorus with a changed first line and a repetition of for the sake of future days, which is the final few words of the last line. Instead of saying, I think the room's to end, how commend them from your dreams, verse 2 says, and the night you're losing, light down from your dreams. Everything else is the same: saving money, move year on your face, hiding behind a borrowed chase. All for the sake of future days. So we hear those words often. This song does have a verse chorus structure. In fact, we start on the chorus, so we get to hear it 3 times, a very modern pop idea. But even the second verse is just the chorus. We end up hearing it so many times, and the final few words, for the sake of future days, is repeated way too many times at the end of this track. And so lyrically, this bleeds into the feeling of the song, of focusing on a singular concept and really exploring it and being within it, not changing, not really going anywhere else. This one stanza is repeated over and over and over, and I wish it made any sense. Maybe the repetition of it could allude to something in the music. And so that leaves the first verse. I'm just going to read this. I have no interpretation of it. I just want to read it. You're spreading that lie, you know. You're getting down, breaking your neck. When doing that was breaking home, what have you done? Free the night? Within that breaking home was breaking that breakup. Home was rolling up, break the wall, and a tall wall did break your home. Roll on. I kind of want to appreciate just the lyricism of it, the way that the words work. And there are some cool lines in here. But at the end of the day, it just doesn't quite roll off the tongue in the way that another psychedelic band that was more focused on words and sounds, not so much meaning, Gong. I've praised Gong's lyrics, especially with their old vocalist, their old lyricist, plenty, for the way that his lyrics feel like Dr. Seuss. There's so much emphasis on rhyme and flow and interline rhyming, and all of the words, they make no sense. I don't think any of the lyrics of the Gong songs I ever had a read on that I could interpret in any way, but they were fun to say. They were great to hear, the way that it all works, the words, the syllables themselves. Absolutely wonderful. This kind of has that at times. The end of the first verse, within that breaking home was breaking that breakup. Home was rolling up, break the wall, and the tall wall did break your home. That kind of has a nice flow to it. But I think the repetition of the word break, funny enough, breaks it up. It needs something beyond the repetition. The interline rhyming is great, but we're rhyming break with break with break with break. We eventually do have the wall and tall that I think works really well, but then we also rhyme home with home right after that, and roll is sort of a soft rhyme with home because of that long O sound. And it really feels like it's on the cusp of something sonically genius. It just doesn't quite clear the hurdle, takes it down with the runner. And a lot of the song kind of lands like that. It doesn't make sense, but it also isn't pleasant to listen to. It wants to be. It's so close, but it never quite sticks the landing. And so it just comes off as a lot of gibberish that I'm kind of happy the vocals were so quiet then. I liked the melody of the vocal line, but if I had heard any of this while listening, I think I would have ended up losing my mind, chuckling at times at the absurdity of the language. I liked Vitamin C. In fact, I still have that chorus stuck in my head from time to time, and I'm still trying to figure out where I might have heard it from. A lot of people gave me suggestions of shows and films that they've heard it in, and I think one of them was a possibility, but I hadn't seen the rest of it, so I'm still trying to figure out where I might have heard it. But this, it's a good vibe. But beyond that, I don't really know what I'm supposed to be listening for here. And so it kind of bounces off of me in a way that Vitamin C didn't, which was just full on energy. Noisy at times, sure, but catchy as all heck. This is the exact opposite of Vitamin C. And I think it's interesting that can write both styles and do them well. I do think that the atmospheric writing here is done very well. It definitely sets a stage and a feeling. It's just not something that really clicked with me too well. So, those are my thoughts. Can's Future Days. What are yours? Let me know your thoughts, opinions, and perspectives on this track. Anything you agree with me or disagree with me on, let me know what's up. Put all that stuff down in the comment section. I did some weird stuff with my fingers. That wraps it up for this. Oh, wait, no. Also, when you're done commenting, head into the description box. In there, you'll find a link for Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to wrap up this week's theme of short songs and explore some brand new music. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.